4 years into Taliban rule, Afghanistan has become the world's only country where half the population is systematically erased from public life. Since seizing power in August 2021, the Taliban have weaponized religion and law to crush women's rights, banning them from schools, universities, workplaces, and even public parks. What remains is not just a humanitarian catastrophe, but a gender apartheid, an assault on women's existence, and that is pushing Afghanistan deeper into poverty and instability. When the Taliban rolled into Kabul in 2021, they promised a softer image compared to the brutal regime of the 1990s. But the reality has been far from worse. Women and girls were the first to be targeted. Secondary schools slammed their gates shut on girls.
When it comes to education and employment, women and girls are still barred from high schools, universities, and most jobs, devastating a generation of young Afghan women.
Universities expelled female students overnight, and degrees followed, barring women from jobs, public spaces, and even the right to travel without a male guardian. The consequences are devastating. Nearly 8 out of 10 young Afghan women today are locked out of education, employment, or training, 4 times higher than their male counterparts. Denying girls an education is not only robbing them of their futures, but also bleeding Afghanistan's economy. According to UN report, the ban on girls' secondary education alone costs the country 2.5% of its GDP every year.
These restrictions are not temporary, not one has been reversed. It is the most severe women's rights crisis in the world, and it's being normalised.
Even women who still manage to work are not spared from intimidation. The latest UN report documents growing restrictions on employment, despite Taliban claims that Islam allows women to work. The report also highlights shocking threats faced by Afghan women working with the United Nations itself.
Turning to Afghanistan, the latest update in the human rights situation in that country, covering a period from April to June of 2025, points that the UN assistance mission has received various reports of the de facto Taliban authorities impeding women's right to work, despite publicly affirming that Islam permits women to work and to be entrepreneurs. Based on monitoring by the UN mission's Human Rights Service, the update also notes that in May, dozens of women working for the United Nations were subject to explicit death threats from unidentified individuals in relation to their work with the UN mission and other UN agencies, funds, and programs.
Healthcare tells another tragic story. Women face growing barriers to medical treatment. In some provinces, they are denied care by male doctors. Yet, female doctors are vanishing after the Taliban blocked women from studying medicine or midwifery. The result? Rising maternal deaths, soaring child marriage, and a mental health crisis driven by isolation, fear, and despair. Workplace exclusion has left Afghanistan with one of the world's widest gender gaps. Less than 25% of women are employed or seeking work, compared to nearly 90% of men. Taliban restrictions have gutted civil society, silenced women leaders, and forced NGOs to either shut down or erase the word women from their projects. Safety is another illusion. With no laws or services to protect them, women face rising gender-based violence. Early and forced marriages are increasing as desperate families give away their daughters to survive economic hardship. Widows and single women with no male relatives to escort them must risk harassment or violence simply to buy food or visit a doctor.
The UN assistance mission in Afghanistan also noted that the de facto authorities' monitoring of women's adherence to the hijab instruction appeared to have intensified in some parts of the country. The update also mentioned recorded incidents of gender-based violence against women and girls, including cases in which officials of the de facto authorities were accused of being both the perpetrators of forced marriage and enforcing forced marriage.
The Taliban are closer than ever to their dark vision of a society without women. No female voices in government. No women in leadership. No images of women on television or at official events. Afghanistan today stands as a reminder of what state-sanctioned misogyny looks like in its purest form.
If we ignore the tightening strictures on Afghan women and girls, we send a message that this is normal and that the rights of women and girls everywhere are disposable or irrelevant. We cannot accept the denial of their rights as the new normal.